I'm the engineering officer aboard HMCS Toronto, and I work within the Marine Systems Engineering Department. Aboard Toronto, there's two engineering departments, the Marine Systems Engineering Department and the Combat Systems Engineering Department. And we often say that the ship has three functions. It has to float, move, and fight. So our department is responsible for the float and the move aspects of that. So our department maintains the propulsion system on board, the power generation, the ship's structural integrity, freshwater production, and all the hotel services, as we say, for all of the ship's company. So we have two reverse osmosis desalination plants on board ship. So those are plants that take salt water in and push them through a series of filters using very high pressure. And through that filter system, it's able to separate the salt and other minerals out of the salt water to produce fresh water on board. And that's used for ship's company's consumption, bathing, and any other freshwater requirement on board. The only other thing that we can do is if we're at sea with replenishment ships, those ships often carry excess water, and we can transfer that water from one ship to another during a replenishment at sea. So aboard Toronto, we have 3 propulsion engines, 2 gas turbines, and 1 diesel engine. So the 2 gas turbines are what we consider our main engines, and they're used for high speed and maneuvering. Whereas the 1 diesel engine is considered a cruise engine. So we'll use that for our normal transits when we want to conserve our fuel consumption and we're just moving around doing a normal patrol. So we'll use the gas turbines whenever the ship is brought to action stations, which is when we're actually doing some war fighting, or if we're transiting into a harbor where we might need to make some quick propulsion movements or some tight maneuvering. So we have approximately 50 personnel in the engineering department. These guys are highly trained technicians, and they get a variety of training throughout their career. So they'll get training specifically on diesel engines, on the gas turbines. They learn about all the pump systems, piping arrangements throughout the ship. Some of them get specific training in welding and other metal repair. And additionally, our department is responsible for the damage control aspects of the ship. So if we were ever to have a fire or a flood on board, our teams will go out and combat that fire or that flood, and they have specific training in those aspects as well. And it's necessary as the ships get older and there's less and less spare parts available to us. We need those personnel available to make repairs and keep the ship running as well as it has been during this deployment. So we have 3 main shops within our department. We have an electrical shop, a mechanical shop, and a shipwright shop, which is mainly metal repair, woodworking, whatnot. So within those 3 shops, our technicians are able to conduct repairs or refurbishment of some of our components when they become worn out or need replacement of consumable materials like a gasket or an O-ring, for example. So they can do quite a lot within those shops, and they also have some machinists within the department that can fabricate new components when we have broken something. However, sometimes we'll have a catastrophic failure of a piece of equipment which we can't predict, and that would require a total replacement of that one piece of equipment, of which we generally will have onboard stores for, but the larger pieces will have to have shipped in to our next port of call, and then our technicians are able to move that piece of equipment down and do an installation and then test it out to ensure that it functions the way it's supposed to. So the complexity of this ship compared to a civilian ship, the technology is more or less the same. In some cases, it is a little more robust. We'll have a lot of vibration dampening built into our equipment because it is a warship. It is expected to take some damage if we were to take it into a war-like scenario. So we'll have a lot of survivability built into our equipment that a normal civilian ship might not necessarily have. And then we also have a little bit more redundancy as well because of that, the same reason. If we were to take damage in one portion of the ship, then we would have a backup to that piece of equipment somewhere else in the ship that's not damaged so that we can keep on fighting. But the technology on the marine systems engineering side of the house, it's not drastically different from that of a civilian ship. But it is a complex machine because there is so much equipment. It is distributed throughout the ship. And again, as we require 50 people to conduct the maintenance and operation of that equipment, it is a lot to coordinate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as we sail. Yeah, and I would say on the combat systems engineering side of the house, with all of their equipment for weapons, sensors, communications, that is much more complex than a civilian ship would be. And a lot of the real estate on the ship is taken up by that equipment. So you will see a lot more of our systems, not so much out in the open, but more visible than you would on a civilian ship, because we use every square inch of a ship that we can for our equipment. And the two engineering departments do work very closely together because we do rely on each other for certain things to make the ship function as a whole. So, for example, the radars and the communication systems, they're not going to function without electrical power. So I have to ensure through my department that we're producing adequate power to the standard that's necessary for their equipment to run properly, or to provide cooling to some of their systems that require that. And it's a close liaison between the two engineering officers and their departments to make sure that these functions are always met to make the overall goal of the ship's mission come to fruition.
We are deployed on Operation Reassurance, Roto 10 in the Mediterranean. So as a coxswain on board the ship, I like to think that when we have our different systems on board, we have our weapon systems and our computer systems and our fuel systems. We also have our people system, or our human system. And as a coxswain, I like to think that I manage that and I co-manage that with the rest of the command team to make sure that all our people are as fit and capable as they can be, and mentally, socially, in order to be that effective team that we need on board Toronto. Going into the deployment, we've had a very busy program, and we really had to watch the crew, and I really had to pay attention to their needs and to what they, to how they were when it came to the work and the workload to prepare a warship. It was finally once we got off the wall and started sailing that everybody sort of got into that period of breath where they could say, okay, now we can do the business. Yes, the business is getting the ship ready, but it's also the business of being at sea for our overall effectiveness. And it's I think with a very big sense of pride, actually, I can say that with our crew, they've gone from being very frustrated alongside to working to get the ship prepared to deploy, to now actually seeing how they've come together. And it's for me, a very proud moment to see that when they're just a very fine working machine. So we're very diverse, right? So when you look at the ship as a system and as an overall system and who needs to run that system. So yes, we have our naval communication operators that have to do all the IT and audio and visual communications. You have your engineers, your marine technicians, you have your cooks. The most, I think, the heartbeat of the ship now, especially as a coxswain, is to see the hard work that our cooks do in order to feed us. And a happy ship is a well-fed ship. And I think with the cooks that we have on board, I think it's the best fed I've ever been, actually. So some really good advice that I received when I just started taking over as my role as coxswain is from a very good friend of mine who's also had been a coxswain, is that you say hi to everybody every day and that you make sure that you smile at everybody every day. At the end of the day, if I'm having a bad day, it gets reflected. And I know that if somebody sees me in the flats and says, oh, the coxswain, she doesn't look happy about something, then I know that they're gonna think that something's not right. So I'm very aware that how I present myself to others is how they could then perceive how things are going. So it's very important that I go around, I see as much as the crew as I can a day, and I go to the MCR, to the engineering spaces, and I go to the operations room, and I go to the bridge. And I make sure I do that every day. I see the cooks because they need to see the leadership, because that's a part of deck plate leadership. You're the go-between with command and the NCMs and also the officers, because you're everybody's coxswain. You're not just the NCM coxswain, you're the officer's coxswain, you're the air department's coxswains, you're everybody's coxswain. And you have to be able to manage with your leadership the nuances between the different departments to make sure it all works, so that they know that at any given point in time they can come to my office and sit down and have a conversation with me. And we could talk about work, we could talk about leadership. We talk about leadership a lot, just different philosophies and ways of being. My door is always open. And it lets the crew know that I'm also a human being in our role as leaders, and that they can be that way too, and that the position of although you're a position of authority, it doesn't have to be scary, and that you're able to talk and have conversations with people. I'm beyond happy with the performance, actually, and I get surprised every day. And you come to realize just how well trained and educated our military personnel are overall. So we've gone from a very intense working up to a high readiness program to deploying. But as soon as we were at sea and we were able to do the business at sea, everything came together quite nicely for us to be able to successfully complete a missile X.
Action stations, action stations.
Even after having some instances where we had to do some real life emergencies that we were very capable in succeeding and overcoming, so that we could fire off our missiles and then continue on with our program. Operationally, it's been every challenge that we've come across, we've attacked it and then we've overcome it.
So HMCS Toronto left Halifax on 21st of January to cross the Atlantic and link up with our NATO task group. Our first part of the mission was all about integration training, so that we can get to know who is in that task group, how we operate, and how we can best operate within that NATO task group. The integration training itself was about a month long. So we went through everything from running through the type of capabilities that a Canadian frigate brings to a NATO task group, to all areas of warfare, running through different capacity building exercises at sea. This culminated when we were in port. We did a big wash-up. Wash-up is a term we use in the Navy for after a big capacity building exercise that we do to see what went right, what we can do better, and to better understand what each ship brings for capability, as well as a capacity for the NATO deployment we're on. After that, we proceeded into the Black Sea. At that time, we split into two from the main task group, and Canada took a lead role in the smaller task group which proceeded to Odessa, Ukraine. We were in Odessa, Ukraine to work with their Navy, as well as the diplomatic community, to show the support that Canada has for the Ukrainian Navy and our partners for peace. We set up and worked together to plan an at-sea capacity building exercise so that we have a chance to see how they operate in an area that we don't always operate, and for them to be able to see how NATO works. After we finished that, we proceeded to Romania. Romania was an interesting visit for us because not only focused on a diplomatic role for us, where the president of Romania came to visit the ship, but also take that opportunity to do some capacity building with them and their Navy at sea. Once we completed our time in the Black Sea, we met up with the rest of the NATO task group and proceeded out as one big group of ships. Once we left the Black Sea, we met up and joined up with the larger NATO task group again, proceeded out and continued our training and learning from each other to set ourselves up for the second half of our deployment. So right now we're in beautiful Civitavecchia, which is just about an hour outside of Rome. Toronto's here to do what we call a rest and maintenance period. So that's a balance of allowing our crew to recharge their batteries, as well as conducting a bunch of maintenance work that is required on the ship to see us through for that last half of the deployment.
We're deployed on Operation Reassurance, Roto 10. Reassurance is Canada's commitment to Europe and to NATO allies for peace and stability in the area. We left Halifax on the 19th of January. And we've done some training with the new Cyclone helicopter that was integrated into the ship. As well as NTOG, which is the Naval Operation Technical Group. It's a boarding team, basically, an enhanced boarding team. So we did some training with them across the Atlantic. Following that, we went all the way to Turkey, where we joined SNMG-2, so the Standing NATO Maritime Group 2, commanded by the Dutch. So we did a port visit. And then after that, we sailed with them. And at that time, we had 4 ships in a formation. We did integration training, from communication to maneuvering, to some gunnery, some air operation. We followed with patrol of the coast of Syria. And then after that, further exercise, bringing us all the way to Sicily, an exercise called Dynamic Manta, basically focusing on anti-submarine, which was quite successful. Following that, a few more port visits where we had defense diplomacy, some engagement with ambassadors coming on board, different receptions, luncheon, that sorts of things. And then we went for a patrol in the Black Sea for 3 weeks, which was so far the highlight of the mission. During that patrol, which brought us all around the Black Sea, we ended up in Odessa in Ukraine. It was the first time a Canadian ship did a port visit over there. It was just after the first round of election, so there was a bit of tension initially we expected, but it turned out that the population was really welcoming. It was a wonderful port visit. The ship was open to visitor. There was great interest into the population, into the ship. We were in company with SPS Santa Maria from Spain. And we had, again, they were also open to visitors. We had receptions. We had a very, very successful press conference with over 40-some media on board to convey NATO's message, Canada's participation, and the support that we bring to Ukraine in their unfortunate conflict to the east of the country. Following that, we carried on to Romania for an exercise called Sea Shield. Led by the Romanian Navy, but with lots of NATO assets. It's a scenario-driven exercise. Things went quite well. Very interesting to integrate with the Romanian Navy. And following this, we proceeded on to RAMP. And RAMP is here right now in Civitavecchia in Rome. We're here for 2 weeks to do some maintenance on the ship, but also to offer the opportunity for the crew to go on a rest period for about 2 weeks. People will fly home. Some people are bringing a loved one in the area to spend some time and hopefully enjoy and visit Rome and Italy. The crew has been performing very well. The morale is good. Everybody's eager to do their best, and with the integration of the new helicopter, it's been working very well for us. Lots of new capability that we have to unlock and that we have to explore. A few days ago, we actually launched a hot torp, so an exercise torpedo beside the ship, which was a big success. Yesterday, we had divers jumping from the helicopters at sea, so it was quite interesting.
So Regina has a 7-month mission ahead. We are starting op projection with going into the Indo-Asia-Pacific region. We're then going into another mission called Operation Artemis, which is in the Middle East, where we have a Canadian staff in Bahrain working under Combined Maritime Force. And that will be mainly a counter-narcotic, counter-terrorism mission before we come back through op projection through the Indo-Asia-Pacific on our way home. So a 7-month trip with 2 major missions, 2 major operations that we're a part of.
Asterix is a replenishment ship. So during this mission, my main focus will be making sure that Regina is properly supported. We can refuel her with fuel for her ship and for her helo. We also have food stores, parts, ammunition in order to restore her if she needs it. We also have a pretty advanced medical facility compared to what they have. We have an x-ray machine, ultrasound. We actually have a doctor on board as well. We also have a dental clinic as well, so with a dentist and a dental technician on board, so that if there are any issues that arise on Regina, we can just bring that sailor over and take care of them.
It's going to be a great trip in terms of new capabilities for the Canadian Navy. Between the CH-148, first time on the West Coast ship.
All clear.
And for NTOC to be able to operate off a West Coast ship in Operation Artemis, which is an active boarding mission at sea in the Arabian Sea. That's going to be a great thing for the Naval Tactical Operator Group. And as well, we're going to be working with the Naval Security Team, reservists who are going to be coming to Dubai and helping us through the force protection concerns in the middle of our deployment. So a lot of new capabilities for the Navy are coming to bear, including the CH-148 Cyclone for this. And I think that's really kind of very cool for the ship's company to be excited about.
It's our first deployment, so it's kind of mixed emotions. They have to, do what they have to do to work and support our family and support our country, and we have to support them by showing up here, and even though it's sad, we got to do it.
The Military Resource Family Center has some really good supports, so we're really happy to have them along to help us during this deployment.
Prior to Vietnam, we were on Operation Artemis, and we did a lot of replenishment with other countries, namely the French, the Danish, the Spaniards, and the Americans, and as well our consort HMCS Regina, where Regina was very successful in capturing large quantities of hashish, which ultimately would suffocate financial resources from terrorist organizations.
I am Reef 11, the Team 2IC for call sign Reef, on board HMCS Regina, and we're about to go check out a suspicious vessel out here in the open seas.
Okay, Oscar Kilo 2, Bravo Lima Delta, you are 5 by 9, also 7 great.
We're off the coast of Oman, not far from the Yemeni coastline as well, patrolling what is the Hash Highway, where illicit cargo hashish makes its way from the coast of Pakistan to the coast of Yemen. We're boarding a dhow currently named Motor Vessel Sajjad. Went to boarding stations approximately 2 to 3 hours ago and did a flag verification boarding. And then started a search based on some tripwires met the fact that he was carrying hashish. The motor vessel Sajjad was carrying 2,569 kilograms of hashish. The master was very compliant, and we were able to seize that hashish, bring it back on board, which was quite the process. So it was all ship's company effort to get there. Every part of the ship has a piece in getting to where we are today, to Operation Artemis, far overseas. So early in the game to have a successful seizure is fantastic. HMCS Regina and motor vessel Asterix have also come from the North Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean, Arabian Gulf. We were able to take a rest and maintenance period in Dubai, and then immediately from Dubai, redeploy from that region, Middle East, and through the Indian Ocean, all the way to the Indian Ocean, through the Malacca Strait, Singapore, and then into the South China Sea for part of op projection. And as op projection has different priorities in this region, we were able to participate in those, part of those priorities and diplomatic efforts, and Vietnam was the first part of that. Great reception by the Vietnamese People's Navy. We were able to enjoy a nice dinner and really get to know what they were about. And we were able to host them the following evening for a reception on board the HMCS Regina. Really good to see such a large turnout. It's actually a very remote location in Cam Ranh. People came from Hanoi, people came from Ho Chi Minh, people came from all over the provinces. So it really generated a lot of interest. People wanted to make sure they were part of the Canadian reception. And we were able to, give back to the Vietnamese in terms of the reception that they gave us. So the ambassador, of course, attended and hosted that reception, and so that was good to see all the diplomatic efforts tying in with our defense effort in that region.
When we were in Vietnam, I had the opportunity to go visit an orphanage just outside of Nha Trang, and we got to hang out with some of the orphans. We did some coloring with them, played soccer, we helped them paint the sculptures. It was a really great time getting to hang out with the kids, but it was a really awesome experience, and it was really nice to see how well taken care of they were by the nuns that ran the orphanage, and how clean and safe it seemed over there.
We were able to present a check, $10,000 that was given to us, raised by Boomer's Legacy funds and Boomer's Legacy about troops supporting others. And it's really meaningful for us to give them $10,000, which will be used for a road project such that when it does flood in the region, that people don't have to walk through dirty water, and kids from out in the region that need to get to the orphanage actually can get there without worrying about their feet and diseases, etc. And so some goodwill, some outreach on behalf of Canada was done by sailors wearing the uniform, and I think our sailors and airmen and people that participated really got a lot out of it. So Regina and Asterix are just having a great tour. The crew's doing an absolutely amazing job. I think the crew had a lot of fun doing Operation Artemis. We're having a lot of fun now going into op projection and seeing some of these different things, different places and faces. And Vietnam was definitely a very busy port, but I think the interaction with the Vietnamese and our hosts, the Vietnamese Navy, was a very positive thing for the ship to see.
Steer 020.
Once we leave Okinawa, we're going to be headed down to Talisman Sabre, which is an Australian-hosted exercise. Talisman Sabre is a very great tactical exercise in which the ship's going to be able to participate in a lot of different activities. And I think the ship's really looking forward to getting down there to off the coast of Queensland and working with our allies down in that region, and what's sure to be a very momentous exercise that finishes off the operation for both Regina and Asterix.
So after we wrap up with the Enforcement Coordination Cell conducting Op Neon in the Yellow Sea and East China Sea, we're proceeding to Okinawa to embark a lot of fuel for our upcoming exercise Talisman Sabre. Which is a multinational warfare exercise put on by the Australian Navy.
It's been a long mission. For some people on my crew, it's been almost 5 months so far, and they've worked extremely hard and very well. They've made a difference in the Indian Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, in the Straits of Hormuz, in the Sea of the East China Sea and South China Sea. So I'm extremely proud of them. We've done over 50 RASs together, and we've passed 10 million liters of fuel by the end of our deployment. So that's a lot of support that we've passed out to other countries and to Regina in order to support our allies in their efforts. And again, I just want to reiterate how proud I am of the crew. They've done such a fantastic job, and it's not an easy job, but they did it very well.